Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars and, more importantly, some of my favourite people. And we've got one for you today. Laurie Holloway, MBE, is, well, a TV legend. He was the musical director for Michael Parkinson's Chat Show and many others too. He's also a prolific songwriter and also one of theme tunes. And he'll be at the Crazy Coqs on Wednesday, the 17th of October. And I'm delighted to say that Laurie joins us on the phone now. How are you?
I'm exceedingly well, thank you, Alex. I used to be famous at one time.
You did? Well, didn't we all, love? I suppose it's the business. It's shrunk. It's nothing to do with us.
No, they're all different people, aren't they? That's right. Different planet.
Is there anybody you haven't worked with?
Yes, Frank Sinatra and Barbara Streisand.
There you go. Everyone else, though, literally, you have either met, been in the presence of, or played for. It's a remarkable career. Congratulations.
Well, I've been lucky. I've had a good time. Most people do like piano players because they can really screw it up if they do it wrong. So you say yes a lot and then do it your way. That's the answer.
It's a very interesting point you make because you've got to be reliable and you've got to turn up on time and you've also got to play it the way they want it played. That might not be the way it's written.
No, you're quite right. You have to please the customer like anybody else who's in trade. Music is a tricky business. You can't alienate your artists because they're the boss after all. You know, I've done very well, but you have to do the job properly and satisfy everybody.
Was there ever a moment you looked down at your fingers and they were shaking because the person you were playing for was so famous?
Well, I've cringed a few times, yes, but you see. I mean, I did 5 years with Engelbert Humperdinck, and that wasn't brain surgery or really that clever, but it was good fun, and I enjoyed it immensely. We're good friends still.
It's interesting. I had Engelbert on just the other week, and when you look at his career again, the people he met and those stories with Elvis, I mean, that's what you're buying, isn't it? The legend, the heritage.
I was there with Elvis when Engelbert met him.
Were you really? Wow.
We were doing the Riviera in Las Vegas, and somebody said Elvis is in, and he'd like to come round and say hello. So he came round and had a photograph taken with Engelbert, and he didn't say a lot, but it was great to be in the presence of Elvis Presley.
I don't want to be negative about today, but it seems like there aren't that level of exciting star around. I mean, I just last night was at the Palladium with Connick Jr. watching him perform. Again, a huge, great showman, but you can't compare him to Elvis or Sinatra.
No, they were enormous stars, weren't they? But, I mean, Harry Connick, he's a good lad. And
hugely talented.
These days, I watch a lot of television, well, some television, and they have celebrity shows, and I've never heard of them.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Where are these celebrities? They must be on a programme that I don't watch, anyway.
Do you think the days of sort of having the MD with a band or even just a pianist behind a star that walks out have gone? I mean, it's far easier to press a button in the sound booth and save the money. Is it a money issue or is it a generational thing?
I think the only band on television right now is the one that I gave up. That's Strictly. I did the first 3 series of Strictly. And I was doing Parkinson at the same time. So my daughter suggested that I pack one in. And I packed in Strictly and gave it to Dave Arch, who's still there, of course.
Yes.
And I didn't know that Parky was going to stop fairly soon. So I backed the wrong horse, I think.
Do you regret that? I mean, it is the biggest show on TV right now, I suppose.
My wife regrets it because she used to come to Strictly every week and enjoyed it. I used to do 14 arrangements every week and never lifted my head up off from the... No, I don't regret it. I've played more golf and I've had more time for social stuff instead of working all the time.
It's very interesting. I think people forget that show is probably 60% music and 40% everything else. It is driven by the band, isn't it?
Yeah, the band is heavily involved, but not heavily featured. You hardly ever see it. You see the singers. Tommy Blaze has been there since the beginning. He was there when I started. And you see Dave Arch, he's introduced, but the band itself isn't seen. Whereas in the old days, do you remember Peter West, Strictly It was called Come Dancing then, not Strictly. And the band was on stage and featured quite heavily, but those times are different. You see, the producers are kids now, 20-odd, 30-odd years old. They've never heard of Michael Parkinson and Laurie Holloway. I'm actually going to Strictly on Saturday, but I have to queue up, apparently.
Oh, really? They're not going to VIP you?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
I did complain yesterday, so I might hear something today about it.
That's the BBC for you. You're very quickly forgotten. I did 15 years there. I think there's an old joke, isn't there? Before your passes stops, they've already forgotten about you, and before you've left the car park. You know?
They do. They've forgotten. You see, I was very hot in the 70s and 80s because at London Weekend Television, I was in with the producers, Alan Boyd, etc.
Yeah.
But as soon as they retire, then somebody else comes and they've got their own guys, their own musicians. So it's moving all the time, which is good, provided the standards kept up.
Let me talk to you about Parky and Bruce and those level of star. Is there any way of defining why they're there and there for 5, 6, 7 decades? Did you work out what they did so well?
Well, I was friendly with both those people. Michael is a neighbour of mine, and we lunched together and play. We used to play golf. We stopped playing now. He's a brilliant interviewer because he shuts up and he lets them talk, and he does his homework. He finds out what they're doing and what they're all about. And Bruce was pure talent. He was absolutely wonderful. Good dancer, good singer, a good compere. He had it all. He was and a nice man. They're both nice men, actually.
My mentor in the business was Sir Ken Dodd, who passed away earlier this year. It is a bit sad, isn't it, that they're sort of one by one leaving us, and I suppose it's obvious and inevitable because of their age.
Well, that is true. But I mean, I've just turned 80, so I'll be on the list soon.
Spring chicken.
My wife said, stop it.
We'll have none of that. Could we go back just a little bit in memory lane of some of the most magical performances for you? If you were to name me a top 3 people that you played for and with, and I guess that's what you do. You play with them. You don't play for them. Is that right?
Well, I spent 6 weeks with Judy Garland.
Wow.
And I think that is top of the list, actually, for excitement and being a friend of a superstar. We did the Palladium concerts with Liza and Judy and Liza at the Palladium, and I spent 6 weeks rehearsing both of them, and it was a wonderful time, and one that I'll never forget. Mel Tormé, the jazz singer.
Wow.
I did a club with John Dankworth's band. I was in John Dankworth's band at the Cool Elephant in London. And we had American visitors every 2 weeks. One was Mel Tormé, June Christie, Oscar Brown Jr., and various people. One was Marion Montgomery.
Wow.
Who I got to know quite well because we were married for 34 years.
Were there moments you pinch yourself and went, I can't believe I'm here right now?
No. Do you know, that's a strange thing? It was just, I thought that it was a normal way of life, really. Because I knew I was a good accompanist rather than a good pianist. And I did the right things, I think. So there weren't many piano players about in those days. And as long as you behave yourself and were polite and reasonably well dressed, you did quite well, I think. Well, I did anyway.
Tell me about writing the theme tunes, because this is a big part of your career that I presume at the time was quite lucrative. Or did they just buy it job lot and you were never paid again?
No, I got royalties. But again, it was because I was in with the producer, Alan Boyd, not the radio Alan Boyd, there's another one, television. He produced Game for a Laugh, Blind Date, Watch Out Beadles About. So I was his music person, and I did all his themes. He would call me in, he'd say, I've got a new artist called Jeremy Beadle. He's going to do a Watch Out Beadles About. He said, will you write the music? I said, yeah, go and have a cup of tea. He came back 10 minutes later and I'd written it. And the same with Blind Date. It's only a couple of notes, really, but if you're in the kitchen cooking and you hear it, you know that Blind Date's coming on.
Well, I was going to pay you the compliment, but it's a slight insult as well. There's a simplicity to the greatest theme tunes, because that's the point. You've got to remember them. The average guy's got to be able to hum along immediately, haven't they?
Well, yes. Blind Date, Game for a Laugh was more complicated, but it was to introduce 4 people. Do you remember they came down the stairs? There was Henry Kelly, Sarah Ferguson, Jeremy Beadle, and Matthew Kelly. That's right. So it had to be quite long and involved. But the others, Blind Date was so simple. They say, when did you write it? I said, at the traffic lights, and they were green.
Just wonderful.
And then, Beadle, they came back and they liked the tune, and they said, what about lyrics? I said, go and have another cup of tea. They came back, and I wrote the classic lyric, watch out, Beadle's about, you better watch out, because Beadle's about.
He was another one taken before his time. I think he'd be a legend right now if he was still with us. He'd still be incredibly relevant and credible. He was great, wasn't he?
He was very good. No, he was a nice presenter, yeah. He was a good lad. His mother had a bar in the West End, I think. So that's why he was good.
Yes. It's always nice to have a 10% discount, isn't it? Is there something, I've noticed that everybody I've mentioned you've said are nice. Do you think there is a sort of connection between being a nice person, decent person, and lasting long in the business? If you're an arsehole, eventually you're going to get caught out and you're never going to work again, are you?
That's right. I think most of the people that I've worked with do well because they are pleasant, nice people, and they respect the people that are putting the shows on. I met one person who was very, very nice, but he demanded too much, and I never seen again. He was called Bob Down, and we did a special.
Oh, I know Bob, yeah. He used to work with Lily Savage, didn't he, a lot?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I worked with Lily Savage quite a lot.
I remember.
And actually, what's he called again?
Paul.
Paul is now doing Blind Date on Channel 5, isn't he?
Yeah.
So it's another Fortman's Halfpenny in the bank.
I think you were the MD, weren't you, on the audience with Lily on the BBC?
Yes, I was, yes. And Dame Edna as well. I did Dame Edna from 1983. Loads and loads of stuff. And Barry Humphries is just a wonderful person. Very, very clever, very intellectual.
When I watched those back and I wasn't able to be there seems such a unique energy in the room. I mean, again, that level of funny is so rare, and to put that in a room for that amount of time must have been electric.
Well, it was good because I've got Edna, Barry and I had written some bawdy tunes and lyrics. And it was great fun. It was really good fun. And I don't really see that happening anymore. There isn't much music on television now, is there?
No, not at all.
In the old days, you used to start with a reasonably sized band, and then cuts began, and it used to finish up with quartet, quintet, then a trio, and then just piano. But when I did Parkinson, we started off with a quintet.
Right.
And he said, would you like something bigger? I said, yeah. And we went to a 12-piece. He said, I think you should have a proper big band. And we finished up with 16. So that was really the difference between Parky and the others.
Amazing. And
Sir Michael, I should say, rather.
And most of that stuff was pre-recorded, but you did do the big live shows as well. Were they even more thrilling? Because if you get it wrong, there's no doing it again, is there?
That was the good thing. You make a mistake, you're out at the same time anyway.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't matter.
It was good. The good old days.
Yeah, they were. You are an absolute legend and one of my favourite people. I grew up watching you on TV, and I don't know why. I was always mesmerised by you. And a couple of people I've met in my life, I've said, I think you're the reason that I own a piano today. I wonder whether your life is still wake up in the morning and pop over to the Baby Grand, or do you not bother with it?
8 o'clock tonight, I've got a rehearsal with my chamber orchestra because we've got a concert tomorrow, Cookham Church. So that'd be fun. And then a couple of our students from the Montgomery Holloway Music Trust will be singing, and I'll be playing with my trio, which is Dave Olney and Harold Fisher on drums.
Beautiful.
So it's still going on, Alex.
No, you're still at it, and that's amazing. Talk to me about Crazy Coqs next Wednesday, the 17th. You'll be doing a gig there, and it could turn into a tour for next year.
Well, it's a tryout, really. We've done it at the CAA, the Concert Artists Association, a couple of weeks ago. Tina mentions people like Anthony Newley and people that I've worked with over the years, and then she sings a song relevant. She'll sing the thing from Charlie, what's it called? Candyman and stuff like that.
Yeah, Charlie and the Chocolate
So
Factory.
it's all name dropping and ego trip, and she sings.
Sounds a lot of fun. Listen, I'd love to see you sometime, and let's film a thing for YouTube, because you are one of our TV greats and a legend, and I thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Laurie.
See you later.